Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Today looking at the importance of staying alive and dying in the game, but also survival, medical gameplay, escape pods, NPCs, how this all ties together in a quick summary and sort of update to Death of a Spaceman. Star Citizen's Death of a Spaceman article was written in 2013 to explain the plans and thinking behind risk-reward, mortality, and the soft lives system. It's also, as far as we are aware, for the most part, still the plan at least. These mechanics could and should evolve though somewhat, for sure. So we're going to be talking about what plans they had for this, and some speculation about what they're going to become. Some of them have evolved a little bit. They've talked lots and lots and lots of times about tiny little nuggets of information about this sort of system and what they've got planned for it. So the idea here is that player characters are mortal. They can permanently die. However, you will be able to get killed a few times, sort of like soft lives for that character, before the final death kind of triggers. Your character will start to show damage and scars, get bionic replacement limbs, cybernetic eyes. So at a glance, you or other players will be able to tell how worn out your character is. There might also be potential downsides of having cybernetic limbs and that sort of stuff. EMPs might affect you. There might be interference that slows your character down if they've got a bionic leg. Once you are dead, you create a new character and they inherit your old character's items, ships and gear. We are unsure of much beyond that. There might be a death tax, reputation loss, or other reasons that you would not want to die. But the idea with this all is to make it very meaningful if your character dies. Risk and reward is going to be very important. That sort of stuff. You're going to try and avoid death, and that will make players act very differently when they sort of like do combat and do missions. And they do need to balance this appropriately. You wouldn't want players being able to abuse a system to play like a pirate for a year to amass loads of wealth and purposely then kill themselves to have a clean character that is no longer a criminal, but with all the items and wealth of their previous character. So there needs to be some thought here. They've also said that there might be ways of reducing the long-term damage to your character too. So maybe you'll be able to pay UEC for operations or for better insurance or that sort of stuff, so that you will be able to regain some of your lost lives, or there will be a very low chance of you permanently dying, something like that. Star Citizen is also planned to have light survival mechanics in terms of Roadmap Alpha 3.7, which is typically deployed in October-ish time for CitizenCon, has the player status system listed currently. The player status tracks the various well-being attributes of a character. They already simulate their health, stamina, and oxygen levels, but they're also going to extend this to include thirst, hunger, rest, inebriation, hygiene, and temperature, as well as other debuffs. So that's like bleeding and things like that. And bleeding is obviously in the game already, but there will be other environmental effects potentially. These will have knock-ons for player stamina and ability, and they can be used by the AI behaviours to make intelligent decisions based on their own condition or condition of others. So these effects will affect the player's stamina and effectively debuff them, but also NPCs will be using them to determine their condition, their actions, and what they want to do, what they'll be able to do. Hygiene, that will have you needing to take a shower or change into civilian clothing, use the toilet. Otherwise, NPCs may comment on the fact that you smell. There could be other effects too. Maybe NPC mission givers won't talk to you at all if you are severely unwashed. When it comes to how often you have to eat or drink, it's not going to be constantly, like in hardcore survival games. I think they just need to strike a balance between not being too much of a burden, but something that you do have to think about every few hours. You go, well, actually, my character is thirsty because I'm thirsty IRL. Stamina allows your character to run, jump, and perform actions. This is affected by the amount of oxygen that your character has and the weight of their gear and loadout. If your character has no oxygen, they will start to take damage and eventually die. Having a helmet on means that you are using your sort of like suit's internal oxygen supply, which will eventually run out if you are in an area that has no oxygen, so like on a planet's surface. Inebriation is likely to only really affect your character if you're socializing in the game, or potentially maybe you're forced to take a drink with an NPC or something as part of a mission. I suppose it could be a system for poison in the future as well. There might be effects, environmental effects, which act as inebriation, or weapons that when they hit you, they effectively inebriate you. Environmental effects like cold, heat, and more will affect your character and I suppose debuff you. There may be protections in the future for this. We might see systems or armors to protect you from extremes, undersuit, stuff like that, or armor for ships for like corrosive atmospheres or freezing you and stuff like that. As I said earlier as well, these sort of things will also affect NPCs. They're going to have 24-hour schedules, times they want to work, eat, drink, and sleep. NPC crews will be able to be forced to be on alert and action ready at any time. So you can say, all the time, be super ready for action, and this will override their schedule. They won't eat or rest, but their performance will start to drop. So that's not going to be ideal. Eventually, they will be very, very crappy at doing certain jobs, roles, or even firing the guns. So you might not want to do that. When a ship goes into combat, as far as I'm aware, those sort of NPCs will go combat ready anyway and sort of like wake up and run around trying to man their positions if they need to. Medical mechanics. At the moment, we have medipens in game. They stop you bleeding and heal your character. These will eventually be just a temporary sort of like get you back on your feet so that you can get to medical facilities or give you a quick combat heal. But again, it's temporary. We are going to start to see early medical gameplay mechanics seep in this year too. NPCs and third-person healing is currently planned for Alpha 3.7, expanding the healing gameplay to allow players to use items with healing properties like the Medipen on other players and NPCs. So you'll be able to jab an NPC or another player to either get them up or to heal them quickly, that sort of stuff. Eventually, treatment for certain damage to your character will require you visiting different medical facilities, and there are tiers of damage that require treatment. Tier 3 is minor damage and sort of like stabilization of wounds. So you might just have been like shot in the leg or not taken not entirely crippled your limb or whatever, but it might affect the use of that area. Tier 2 is crippled limbs. If you have a crippled limb, you are going to have a disability when it comes to pulling out a gun, maybe not being able to use certain things in that hand, or maybe you are slower because you are literally unable to run. Tier 1 damage is near death. This can be a huge amount of damage all over your body, but not treating this for a certain period of time will probably just lead to your death, or maybe you're incapacitated until you actually get treatment, something like that. And for the other tiers of damage, not seeking aid may have knock-on effects to your character until you actually get healed. They might slowly get worse over time, or you just literally can't use that arm properly until you go to that facility. Even if you've medipenned yourself a lot, you're still not going to be able to use your arm properly because your arm has been blown off or something. Facilities may and almost certainly will charge for their services and might only be able to treat you up to a certain level of damage. So the Apollo medical ship, for example, can choose to have 3 tier 3 beds, 2 tier 2 beds, or 1 tier 1 bed in each of its 2 modular medical rooms. It's worth mentioning even tier 3 facilities will be able to stabilize more critical wounds until they can receive treatment. You will have search and rescue missions along with this, missions to rescue NPCs after a fight, or to go to like derelicts and find injured people, grabbing them up, healing them with that Apollo or other medical ship. Maybe you've got a Cutlass Red and you're just going to be going around grabbing people, taking them to the better medical facilities and that sort of stuff. So there is going to be a lot of gameplay there. Players will be requesting help via service beacons, but we don't really know what sort of timer there's going to be on injuries needing to be treated. Let's talk a little bit more about loss, insurance, physical inventories, looting. So respawning at the moment, there is no penalty for dying other than that you respawn at the last major zone you visited and you'll have to reclaim your ship if it exploded or whatever, or go and find it. However, in the future, we'll have us sort of like respawning at the closest appropriate medical facility or hospital, and there's going to be more lasting effects. What I mean by this is there's going to be loss of inventory. Physicalized inventories are coming in the game again in 3.7. The design and implementation of a localized physical inventory system with persistence and limitations, allowing for a more immersive and realistic experience. This means that you're going to only be able to carry the items that are physically attached to your character, and you'll need to make use of lockers, weapons racks, and more, and then literally go, I want to change my armor. I have to go to this locker and change the armor that I left here earlier. Players will at some point be able to loot your gear, and you're likely to lose the items on you once you respawn. So you go, oh no, I've died on the planet, whatever. I respawn, I've lost the items that I had on me. However, insurance mechanics should be evolving to accommodate this somewhat, with players being able to insure their inventories potentially, or gear, or sort of like customized ship loadouts, that sort of stuff. That's all expected, but not 100% confirmed. escape pods and ejecting. An important part of staying alive is going to be knowing when to retreat, eject, or use your ship's escape pods. Ships are not going to be health pool based in the future. They're not just going to explode when their health reaches 0. Physicalized components are coming for ships, and this is going to have players targeting your components, like your thrusters, your power plants, and shield generators, to try and destroy them, to have you disabled or crippled. In fact, that is going to be what damage does to you. It's going to damage parts of your ship, which will lead to your ship becoming typically disabled or crippled permanently or whatever until they are repaired or salvaged or you escape or whatever. But there are going to be, especially in larger ships, higher times to kill, where you're going to have players running around or NPCs running around trying to replace subcomponents, doing spot repairs on systems and items that have been disabled, as well as like relay points where power or data might run. So like the literally like junction boxes, they might need to be repaired, just like a fuse is blown or whatever. But the idea here is that in larger ships, sort of repairing during combat is going to be incredibly important. And there are still going to be cases where items explode and kill you because you're standing next to them or because your ship's small and it's taken a huge amount of damage. It's like suddenly, you get shot in the face by a huge amount of ordnance, but it's going to be less likely of an instant death like we currently have. At the moment, when your ship health reaches 0, you sort of explode. Ejecting is going to be a valid tactic to stay alive, and something that isn't used much currently. But when you see that your ship is sort of like dead in the water, and there's a ship flying around you still, and you are totally crippled, that's the time to eject. Escape pods are going to be placed around some of these larger ships as well. These are going to require ship-to-ship docking, and the same tech, I believe, that's sort of like needed for the Hull C and Parasite ships to all come together before escape pods come online. They're not on the roadmap at the moment. It's not known yet what the final plans will be for ejecting and using escape pods either in the persistent universe, where you might just respawn after we've used them for a few seconds, maybe like at a search and rescue center or a hospital. But sort of like the idea here is that you won't lose a life. It might be that you need to be rescued by a service beacon that a NPC or player will have to come and complete. There is the possibility you may be able to pilot escape pods to some degree. We just don't 100% know yet. If there is sort of like the gameplay there that you do need to be rescued by someone, then I suspect they will have a system where eventually an NPC, after a certain amount of time, will just sort of like turn up and rescue you. Or maybe you can just have the option of respawning immediately from your escape pod or ejection. This, combined with combat being slower in the new flight model and effectively higher times to kill, should make for more meaningful decisions and people being chased away more than being just always killed, players trying to disable each other's ships by targeting key locations, that sort of thing. They've also previously said that NPCs will be able to die too. I don't expect that mission givers or very important NPCs will be able to be permanently killed though. Otherwise you'll just lose like Mars Eckhart within the first day after everyone just shoots him in the head. The subsumption system is supposed to support named NPCs as part of missions, like a pirate leader you are hunting might gain reputation and infamy if that mission isn't completed, or lots of players fail at that mission, or that pirate leader is sort of like starting to take down a load of supply ships or something like that. And that will then generate more missions to take down that pirate faction or that pirate boss or his posse or whatever. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention as well is that they are going to be adding knockdowns and that sort of stuff to the game as well for FPS combat. So you are much more likely, rather than just to be instant killed from a shot, to be incapacitated briefly or knocked down. And thus you can use medical equipment to stabilize yourself or have someone drag you off to help you. As far as I'm aware, it's not just going to be headshot, you're dead. It might be headshot. If you're solo, they can probably just walk up to you while you're disabled and sort of like, kill you or whatever. But the idea here is that you won't just be able to get one shot every time. And some of these medical ships as well, so like the Endeavour, the hospital ship, or potentially even the Apollo, the tier 1 facilities there might allow for players to respawn there, for example. Obviously, there'll be limits to this, so bear that in mind. Getting killed offline is still a real issue they need to talk about. If you've logged off and you log back on and your ship's been destroyed because you didn't all log off in beds or whatever properly, that's something that needs to be balanced and thought about. Racing is something players talk about a lot as well when it comes to mortality. Both scramble races and the types of race we see in Arena Commander will both be in the persistent universe. And there's an extreme risk of dying in racing. Maybe the less health pool driven vehicle and ship system will help mitigate this, with ships just taking major damage when ramming things or getting destroyed in these races rather than just killing the pilot. Maybe you'll just see cockpits flying around in races when people have rammed things. Also, they have stated that this sort of gameplay, they do want to have less risk where appropriate, and have talked about having really good medics on standby for these sort of activities or nearby medical facilities, things like that to help mitigate risk. But nothing's like confirmed here. However, they decide to evolve that, and as long as the balance of risk and reward is appropriate, then I'm probably going to be quite happy. The mechanic just sort of like the death of a spaceman needs to add to the game rather than creating constant uncertainty, anxiety, and stress. It needs to be worthwhile. It needs to go, well, yeah, okay, racing is incredibly dangerous, but being a racer makes you so much UEC that it's worth it, sort of thing. They could do things like that. If there's a lot of risk, if there's a high risk of dying and death is meaningful and costs and is annoying, then yeah, risk and reward just needs to be balanced properly. I'm very interested to know other people's thoughts at this stage. Obviously, this mechanic is nowhere near completed, and they're sort of like iterating it as they go along, and they're building other systems up first, and they will change the sort of systems as sensible and change their plans as sensible. So talking about it now is a good idea. It's also not likely that we'll have any form of like permadeath on our characters until after full persistence is in, and then again, it's not going to really be even important then or meaningful until there are no more resets in game, because at the moment, for the indefinite future, every 3 months at least, there is a reset, resetting all your Alpha UEC or your Alpha UEC purchases and your characters and all that sort of jazz back to their sort of like original state. But Alpha 3.7 does have at least some parts to help stitch these mechanics together and starting to build a sort of like greater framework for them to grow from. Every month we have a ship giveaway. This month, by popular demand again, it's for an Anvil Carrack, this time sponsored by Forgotten Heralds, a lawful private military company with a history grounded in UEE military service. They are recruiting at the moment and are a good choice for both veteran and new players alike. All you need to do to be in for a chance of winning that Carrack, though, is be subscribed to my YouTube channel and comment on any of my Star Citizen videos made during this month. Links to more info on Forgotten Heralds and full details of the giveaway down below. If you don't have a gaming PC yet or you are upgrading, instead consider Shadow Cloud Gaming. They allow you to leverage the powers of the internet to stream a high-spec Windows 10 environment to any other PC, Mac, or device like a smartphone or tablet. It is working really well in Star Citizen's 3.4 branch, and be sure to use the code BoredGamer if you do decide to check it out to get a discount. Links below. This channel exists because of its community. If you wish to support the channel further, below there are links to Patreon, Subscribestar, and there's the YouTube channel memberships, literally the join button below this video. VIPs do get some exclusive stuff and early content as a thank you as well. If you have any feedback, suggestions, or just want to say hi, please drop a comment below or poke me on discord.gg/BoredGamer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the verse.